Hello, and welcome to the Culture of Success, the Elementary PE Workshop Presentation 2021. So I have a mantra that I use, one of several. Most teachers have a lot of little mantras that we use. But the one I'm going to be using today is small wins leads to big gains. And with our students, we want to give them the confidence to be successful in our classes. And sometimes those small wins can really build that confidence, especially when it's early in the semester. So I'm here to talk, and I am William Bode. Been teaching high school physical education and health for the last 25 years, but I have a total of 25 years of teaching, and it's all been in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District. I was actually a student in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School District, so I am definitely a local product within our school district. I was fortunate enough to win the North Carolina High School Teacher of the Year in 2016 and the Southern District Teacher of the Year in 2017. So you might have picked up, I am a high school physical education teacher, but I think that some of the things that we're doing here will equate to middle school and elementary because of some of the activities I'm using, and we'll see that a little bit later. So, welcome to my science lab. Well, let's not call it a science lab. Let's welcome to my science gym. I am known for just really stretching some things and really trying to create a student who really enjoys physical activity. And sometimes I do some crazy things, and sometimes I do some regular things. But I'm always trying to mix it up. And so one of the things that I have to do to kind of mix it up is I have to realize that the students that come and see me each semester, they're their own individuals and they're very unique and they're starting to develop into an adult and they're starting to express themselves a little bit more. And so I've got all these thoughts. And we all know with physical education, some people really like physical education and some people just aren't too fond of it. And so my job, I feel like at the beginning of each semester or each class is to set the tone because I want them to have success. I want those small wins to be big gains. And so I developed a unit called Culture of Success. But how did I get there? Well, of course, like most good teachers, we all start at the standards. And so when I look at Shape America's Standard 4, the physically literate individual exhibits responsible, personal, and social behavior that respects self and others. So that's my starting point. That's my jumping off. So now I'm ready to start mixing it up. What can I create to develop that respectful, responsible student within my physical education class? Well, if I keep looking down the standards, I've got some substandards, and safety is a huge one. And we all know this, right? We all know that safety is just really important within physical education. And so I want to create an environment that is safe, but I also want my students not just to, hey, we got to be safe. I want them to practice being safe. So that's one ingredient that I'm going to be putting in uh, to my little concoction. The second ingredient is going to be communication because here comes another standard, substandard, using communication skills and strategies that promote team and group dynamics. So I want my kids not only to be able to talk to me, I also want them to be able to talk to one another, be able to communicate respectfully, and be able to problem solve, and to be able to again create that environment within our class that um, is successful for everybody. So my next ingredient, hey, I just mentioned problem solving. You know, anytime we problem solve, if we're with others, we're going to communicate. And so problem solving, again, another substandard. Um, And I want my students to be able to think. I want them to be able to think individually. I want them to be able to think as a group. So problem solving, huge, huge part of what we do in physical education. Here's my next one. Yeah, RESPECT. Got to have that respect. And again, another substandard. Um, it's easy to say respect. Hey, respect yourself, respect your friends, respect the teacher. But again, I want them to be able to practice this. So that's another ingredient that I'm going to end up putting into my little concoction. And then finally, one that I feel is uh, really important, and that's growth mindset. You know, growth mindset is something that Carol Dweck came up with years ago. And as I learned about growth mindset, I really, really just I latched onto it because I felt like it was such a natural fit to physical education. And so instead of uh, just, hey, have a growth mindset, I teach growth mindset. I let my kids practice what it means to have a growth mindset. And we all do this kind of naturally, but we've given it a name and it's got its own ingredient. So I've got all this science and I'm putting all these ingredients together. And yeah, that's my mad scientist emoji down there or Bitmoji. And what's it going to create? Is it going to create a superhero? Well, I know that's our theme, but it's actually just going to create happy, well-adjusted students in my class. Uh, I'm not a superhero. I just love to teach kids and help them be the best version of themselves. And if they can enjoy physical activity on a regular basis, I feel like my science experiment has worked. But how am I going to do that? Right? I've been telling you about all these ingredients and putting them together. Well, I'm very intentional. So I take the first 2 weeks of my class and I create a culture of success unit. Within those 2 weeks, we do a lot of team building activities, a lot of individual activities. Uh, as a class, we establish rules and procedures, and most importantly, expectations. And so I just think 2 weeks, I have my students for anywhere from 70 to 80 minutes every day. So I really can um, immerse my students in this process. Now, I'm sure not everybody has that same setup, but if you're consistent throughout your practice, you can develop a culture of success as well. So, what do I do within these first 2 weeks? We talked about what we're concentrating on, and I wanted to remind you safety, communication, problem solving, respect, and growth mindset. Uh, those are just embedded in everything that we do, but it's really concentrated at the beginning. So, some of the activities that I do, and some of these may be familiar. My wife was a elementary PE teacher for 25 years. I took some of her activities. The great people on Twitter share their team building activities, so I've used some of those. And again, just like a mad scientist, I've kind of put them all together to create this culture of success. Now you're thinking, well, I don't know what that game is. I'd really like to know what that game is. At the end of this session, there will be a bit.ly link to a folder with this presentation, as well as a sheet that will have links to all the resources. So everything will be able to be accessed and that you can look more deeply. Because I have the description for Time Warp, Cross the River, and all these activities. So there are my culture of success activities that I have and that I use not only for that first 2 weeks, when I feel like students need a little reminder of growth mindset, I can toss those in as a warm up, and or I can toss them in as a full day's worth of activities. So this culture of success activities is a document that, like I said before, that has, golly, about 15, but any activities will work, and I'll show you how. So the first thing that I do is with my activities, I take lots of pictures. Well, I'm in high school, so my kids don't mind me taking pictures, and we have computers. And with all that time, I create an assessment, and I use the pictures because high school kids love pictures. And so when they see pictures of themselves and their friends, they become very engaged, and it also sparks their memory. Oh, I remember that activity. I remember working with you here, and oh yeah, our team did this, and so it really sparks a lot of academic conversations, and that's what I want. And so I actually create a Google folder, and whatever class period I have, after I've taken pictures, I just upload them right there, so they're there for the end of those 2 weeks. Lots of pictures. Can't take enough pictures. At the end of each activity, we have a little debrief circle. Some people may call it a restorative practice circle, but I just call it a debrief circle. I like for everybody in our class to be able to see each other. So instead of just having them like sit on the bleachers or sit in front of me, I create kind of a community, and I use a circle to do that. And I ask questions. And my mad science self, I didn't have all the perfect questions at the beginning. I just started asking questions like, hey, how did you stay safe? What challenged you? And so I asked really basic questions. But I learned how good active listener, I learned to hear what the students were telling me, and it prompted me to ask other questions. And so there's a link here. Again, it's at the end of the presentation, but there's more debrief questions that you can look at. And again, if you've been teaching a while, you probably have your own, and you may do this naturally, just in different ways, right? In high school, it's a lot easier for me just to, as a break between and transition between activities, just to circle them up, ask them a few questions. In the past, I've used little magnets and had them move the magnets to certain answers and how they felt about each activity. But I found with high school students, it's easy just to have a conversation. You want to get them to talk and connect that learning. So, doing all this work, well, I want to assess if they are meeting these standards. And so, one of the ways that I've done this is I use the pictures. Um, I use the debrief questions as a quick check for understanding. We're an AVID school, so I also use quick writes either at the beginning or the end of a class. It just allows them to write some things out, because sometimes when you ask debrief questions, only certain people answer, and you want to make sure that you give everybody an opportunity to express what they've learned. And students that are a little bit more quiet, and especially at a larger class that maybe can be a little bit more quiet, I just have them do quick writes. Again, it's a quick way to, sorry the pun, but yeah, it's an easy way. How about that? To get what their thoughts are. And I don't need a big, huge dissertation. I just need 2 to 3 sentences about that activity based on my question prompts. So let's get to the end of the unit. So I have this folder uh, full of pictures. I just take bunches of pictures for each of the activity. We're talking, depending on how many students are in the class, because I want to make sure I get pictures of every student in the class doing pretty much every activity. So I can have probably 20, 30 pictures per activity. So I have a lot of pictures. Sometimes I even will bunch them up. And so within my folder, if I do a cross the river activity, I'll have a folder for second block that says cross the river. And so they at least know where to go look. And they love looking through the pictures. So that folder, I give them a link that's shared with them, and there's a template. All right, I have a template and it's linked here. And the template is just a real base template. I want the students to read directions. I want them to learn how to use a rubric. Um, and so you can click on here and look to see what those are. But it's just, I think it's 5 slides, 6 slides. I have the title slide. I have the direction slide. I have one slide for each of the characteristics. And then I have a rubric at the bottom. And I want to show you what an example of one of my students did. So here's just a student example, and I took their name out. Um, Not that you would know who it was, but I took the name out. So the student example, PU reflection. So what you'll see a picture. We were doing a group stand-up activity. We started out with 2s, then we went to 4s, and then we went to larger groups to try to problem solve and work as a team to stand up. And as you can see, a lot of kids are laughing, having fun, and part of my rubric is I want them to also find another picture online that equates with the words that we're going. And then just a real quick reflection of what we were doing and how they use teamwork. Next activity, we are working on communication. And this was a capture the balls activity, I believe. That, or it looks like, yeah, I think it might have been capture the balls, or it was the 3-catch game. So we used that as communication. And so this person actually used, he would actually talk to distract the other team so he could get open. And which I thought was quite interesting because, typically communication is to, problem solve and to communicate with a teammate, not necessarily the other team to distract them. So I thought that was actually pretty clever. And I told him that because, I love it when kids think outside of the box. And so right off the first 2 weeks, I realized that this student thinks a little bit outside the box. And I like that. Next one, growth mindset. So in this activity, we are doing across the river. And I scaffold cross the river. I start with these big hula hoops and give them plenty of hula hoops, and they get over really easy. And they're thinking, "Wow, that wasn't hard, Mr. Bode." But again, small wins lead to big gains. And so I start taking away the hula hoops, and then eventually I use poly spots for them to be able to cross the river. And so there's different ways that I get them to think. But as you can see, this student learned about not giving up because some people did. We actually had a group that quit because they were getting so frustrated, and that happens. And so, we don't give them a hard time about quitting. We talk about those. Hey, why did you quit? I was getting frustrated. Well, why? What made it so frustrating? Because, and they fill in the blank. And we would talk about those solutions, and sometimes they get right back in there, and sometimes they just weren't ready, and that's okay. Again, we're trying to create positive experiences. So even though they didn't have that win, I didn't want them to completely feel defeated right off the bat. So that's growth mindset. And then respect. So with this, it's our group juggle activity. And this can get frustrating because we use more than one object. And you can see actually the person, even in the picture, having a tough time with this. And actually, I think they were actually picking teams. But with this activity, they are moving a ball around, and if it drops, they have to start over again. And it can be really, really tough. So not only is it using growth mindset, communication, and problem solving, when people start dropping the ball, some people don't know how to interact with a person when they fail. And so they want to fuss at them, they want to call them names. What a great way for me to intervene and say, is that a great way to show respect? And they catch themselves. No. And then, bam, there's a teachable moment that every teacher loves. And we go in and we talk about what respect looks like when somebody else makes a mistake, right? Or can't perform a skill that may hurt the team, right? And so we get that great, really organic conversation about respect. So again, remember, small wins lead to big games. And I actually look at this picture and I see some of the young folks in this picture that are have graduated, and I just watch them. I mean, this is a ninth grade class, and they graduated, and they're just so much different than they were when they walked into the building. And I just love it, right? I just love the being a part of their maturing and helping them deal with certain emotions. So I am really sorry for not being there in person. But like a lot of teachers, I have to work in the summer, and but I want to answer any questions that you might have. So if you do have any questions or would like to chat further, my email is here. I would love to talk to you. I would love to be able to see if I can help you in any way, brainstorm, or maybe there's something that you saw and you're like, I just didn't get enough explanation about that. Go ahead and email me. I check it all the time anyway. And then you could follow me at Twitter or on Twitter at Bode-EPEW. Would love to connect with other wonderful educators out there. And as promised, here is the link to the presentation and the resource links. It's right there in the folder on this link, and it'll get you to the presentation as well as some links on another document. For whatever reason, if something doesn't work, please email you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. And I hope that you have a restful summer. I know it's been a crazy year. I hope you enjoy the other presentations. And thank you to the elementary PE workshop staff for inviting me to present to y'all today. So have a good summer and have a great 2021-22 school year.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Groton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.